John King, USA, CNN, weeknights 7 Eastern.
Important perspective now in tonight's breaking news. Information taken from Osama bin Laden's compound in Pakistan reveals a plot to derail trains here in the United States, timed for the 10th anniversary of 9/11. With us now, the nation's first Homeland Security Secretary, Tom Ridge. Mr. Secretary, it's good to see you. Let's start with that. From your experience, when you know now that your former department and other agencies have these notes, have these sketches, have some form of an outline of an al-Qaeda plan to time to the anniversary coming up in 4 months to try to derail U.S. trains, what does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that they're consistent in their operational planning. Whether or not they're even close to the capability of executing it remains to be seen. But that was a theme. The transportation infrastructure has been a theme that we've heard about now for 9+ years. And it should come as no surprise, even though it wasn't al-Qaeda. They were involved in Madrid. A terrorist group was involved in Madrid in 2004. It was al-Qaeda in Great Britain in 2005. So I think the interesting notion here is that there are actually people we're talking about last year doing something with trains this year. So it's a heads up. It's a warning. I don't think it's necessarily actionable, but I think it's appropriate that you just sent this information out to those responsible for that infrastructure.
And take us back in time. It's important for context. In the past, when these documents were seized and brought in and analyzed by U.S. intelligence analysts, when you'd have them say, some of them discuss a plan, some of them discuss ideas, how much of it turned out to be real and how much of it turned out to be just sort of, debating what might they do?
Well, John, I think you've really at the epicenter, the real challenge within the intelligence community and within Homeland Security generally. You get repeated and recurring themes about particular kinds of threats at specific targets, but you don't necessarily see or hear anything else in that chain of information that you're gathering from multiple sources that says anything about their being prepared to actually execute the plan. So I think today's alert was simply a reminder that it has been part of a potential planning. It's been something that has been recurring in themes for the past 9 years. Be vigilant. And if there's more additional information, and I'm quite confident that there would be more specific directions given to those involved in rail transportation to take additional action. Since over the past couple of years, make no mistake about it, there's additional security, both seen and unseen. Apparently at the time, they just wanted to remind people that there's still a potential target. Take notice, but use the information that we have, but don't make any changes now. There's no necessity for it.
Take us inside what is happening right now in the United States government. On this scene tonight, Mr. Secretary, I covered the White House for 8.5 years. I know what kind of security travels with the president. You could see that it was magnified today, not only because the president was out right after the killing of Osama bin Laden, but also, of course, he's at a site here that twice, not just on 9/11, but once previously also was a terrorist target. What is happening right now in the immediate days after with an obvious fear of retaliatory strikes?
Well, first of all, I think that everybody in this country should be comforted that the Secret Service will do everything they can to continue to protect the president and the vice president. I also don't think that I think the word retaliatory strike might be somewhat misplaced. We've been under attack since 9/11, and the notion that if something would occur in the next couple of weeks or the next couple of months would be in retaliation to the death of bin Laden, I personally think might be that emphasis might be misplaced. My guess would be that it would be a plan that had been executed, but had been in the planning stage long before we found bin Laden. So while I don't particularly feel, unless there's very specific information, that we ought to get wrapped around the notion of retaliation, let's be very clear. There have been multiple arrests over the past year, homegrown terrorists. We've seen what happened in Fort Hood, in Detroit, and New York City. So we're constantly under attack, and I'd be careful to categorize the next attack as retaliation. We're still in the crosshairs of these radicals.
I'd like to get your perspective on how you think this all has been handled by the administration. You're not just the former Homeland Security Secretary. Well, you're a former member of Congress, former governor of a very important state, a combat veteran in Vietnam. In terms of how this raid was, A, organized, B, implemented, and then the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, taking the risk to give the orders. What did you make of it?
Well, from top to bottom, I think, and as people have said before, this whole notion transcends politics. I guess if you want to give political credit, you'd give it to both President Bush and to President Obama. But at the end of the day, the credit, as both of them have said, goes to the intelligence and the military. And in terms of the president's presence today in New York City, I thought it was respectful. It was solemn, very solemn. It was appropriate and indeed very, very well done.
You agree with the decision not to release the photos of the corpse?
I do. I don't know. We're going to have these conspiracy theorists around us forever. There are probably still some people that think that Neil Armstrong didn't walk on the moon. It was on some movie set. There's still some people who believe that we're somehow responsible for the destruction of the Twin Towers. I think the president is spot on. Pretty gruesome pictures when you get firearms or that part of your anatomy, and I don't think it serves any benefit to show them to the broader public.